she said. Don't propose, my friends will laugh at the ring you can afford. So I didn't. I proposed to someone else 1 year later with a $12,000 ring. At the same restaurant. She watched from 2 tables away. Hey viewers, just a quick thanks. Over 10% of you are already subscribed and it means the world. If you're new here and enjoy these stories, join the family by hitting that subscribe button. We're on the road to 10,000. I sat there across from her, my heart beating so fast I thought it might burst out of my chest. I had spent weeks saving up for that small diamond ring. It wasn't flashy or massive, but it was everything I could afford at the time. I loved her so much that I didn't care about the size. I just wanted her to be mine forever. I watched her as she sipped her iced coffee, her eyes scrolling through her phone like nothing else mattered. I reached into my pocket, feeling the tiny box inside, and took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm in my chest before I spoke. Hey, can I ask you something important today? I said, my voice shaking slightly. She looked up at me, her eyes bored and distracted. What is it now? She asked, not even trying to hide her annoyance. I hesitated, then pulled out the box and slowly opened it in front of her. Her eyes went wide, but not with happiness. For a second, she just stared, and then she burst out laughing. Loud, cruel laughter that made everyone around us turn to look. You can't be serious, she said between her laughs. This is it? This tiny cheap thing? Oh my God, don't propose to me with that. My friends will laugh at me for saying yes to such a pathetic ring. Just put it away. Please. My hands trembled as I closed the box. My chest felt so tight I could barely breathe. People were staring, whispering, probably feeling sorry for me, or worse, agreeing with her. She didn't even care that I looked like a fool. She just picked up her coffee and went back to her phone as if nothing had happened. I didn't say another word that day. I paid the bill, walked her to her car, and drove home alone. I spent that whole night staring at the ring under my lamp, wondering if love was really about money and glitter. But I didn't propose to her again. A year later, life had changed. I had been promoted, launched my small online business, and worked tirelessly until I had saved enough to buy a ring worth over $12,000. But this time, it wasn't for her. I was with someone else, someone who saw my worth even when I had nothing. Someone who would have said yes to me even if I offered her a simple silver band. So I took my new girlfriend to the same restaurant. The same table, the same atmosphere. I got down on one knee, pulled out the sparkling ring, and watched her eyes fill with tears of joy. But as she said yes and hugged me tight, I noticed something from the corner of my eye. 2 tables away, sitting alone with her coffee, was my ex. The same girl who once laughed at me for not being rich enough. Her face was pale as she watched us, her lips trembling, eyes fixed on the ring she thought she deserved. My heart pounded with so many emotions at once. And right then I realized, this was the moment I had been waiting for all along. But what happened next will leave you speechless. I couldn't stop my hands from shaking as I slipped the ring onto my girlfriend's finger. She was crying softly, smiling through her tears, whispering, "Yes, yes, of course, I'll marry you." People around us clapped politely. The waiter came over with complimentary dessert, congratulating us with a big grin. But all I could think about was the pair of eyes burning into my back from 2 tables away. I didn't look at her at first. I focused on my fiancée, trying to soak in her happiness, and keep myself from drowning in old memories. But a part of me, deep inside, wanted to turn around and see her face. The girl who once told me I wasn't enough. The girl who said her friends would laugh at her if she wore the ring I saved every penny for. My fiancée held my hand across the table, her thumb brushing over my skin. "You're so quiet," she said softly, tilting her head to study my face. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile. Yeah, I'm just overwhelmed," I said, and it was true, though not in the way she imagined. She didn't know this place held a memory that once broke me. She didn't know that the woman sitting a few feet away had nearly destroyed my confidence and love in myself, in everything I believed about what it meant to be enough for someone. I still remember how I met my ex. It was during my early working days when I was barely making it to the end of each month. She came into my life like a storm, with her bright smile, her confidence, and her expensive perfumes. I was working late one night at the small marketing firm where I was a junior associate. She came in to finalize some product shoot contracts for her boss. I offered to help her carry boxes to her car, and she smiled at me like I was the kindest person in the world. That smile pulled me in so fast I didn't even realize I was falling. Our first date was cheap coffee at a roadside cafe, and she seemed okay with it back then. She even teased me about how she preferred simple places. But slowly, things changed. She started talking about her friends' expensive gifts and diamond bracelets. About how her colleague's boyfriend bought her a designer bag. Just because. I would sit there, nodding, pretending to be unbothered while quietly calculating how many months' salary it would take me to buy her the smallest brand item. Each day with her made me feel like I had to run faster just to keep up, just to stay in her life. But despite all of that, I truly loved her. I thought if I kept trying, I would become the man she wanted. That's why I bought the ring back then, even though it meant cutting back on my meals, skipping my share in house rent, and working side jobs on weekends. But to her, it wasn't worth a single moment of pride. Now, as I sat here with the woman who accepted me for my heart, not my wallet, I felt a storm of emotions I couldn't name. And at that moment, sitting in the same restaurant, I had no idea that my ex wasn't just watching us. She had something to say, something that would flip everything upside down. I could feel her eyes burning into me as I tried to focus on my fiancé's glowing smile. The waiter left after taking photos for us, and people slowly went back to their dinners. But I couldn't ignore the tension in the air. My mind kept drifting back to my ex sitting 2 tables away. I finally gathered the courage to turn around for just a moment. Our eyes met. She looked frozen, her perfectly painted lips slightly parted, her eyes wide and glassy. For a second, I almost felt pity for her. Almost. My fiancée excused herself to the restroom, and the moment she left, my ex stood up and walked straight to my table. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor with each step, her hair bouncing lightly over her shoulders, just like I remembered. She stopped right in front of me. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then she cleared her throat and forced a smile. "Hey, long time," she said softly, her voice trembling despite her attempt to act calm. I didn't reply. I just looked at her, waiting for whatever she came to say. She glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. I saw everything. Congratulations," she said, but there was no warmth in her words. It was like she was choking on them. "Thanks," I replied shortly. She shifted her weight from one foot to another, her perfume filling my senses, pulling out buried memories I didn't want to feel again. "Listen, I've been thinking about you a lot lately." I didn't mean what I said back then. I was stupid, she whispered, her eyes darting around to make sure no one heard her. I could hear her voice cracking, but I felt nothing. Just emptiness. "You didn't mean it?" I asked quietly, my eyes locked onto hers. "You humiliated me in front of an entire restaurant. You told me I wasn't enough for you." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her eyes were filling with tears now. I didn't realize what I had back then. She finally managed to say. I leaned back in my chair and crossed my arms. "But now you do, when you see a $12,000 ring on someone else's finger?" She winced at my words, blinking away tears. "No. I mean, yes. I mean, I just miss you. I miss us," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The pain in her eyes was real, but my heart felt nothing. Before I could reply, I saw my fiancée walking back towards us. My ex turned around quickly, wiping her eyes and stepping aside. My fiancée returned, smiling brightly as she took her seat, completely unaware of the storm that had just passed through. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Because my ex wasn't ready to let go, and she was about to make sure my life turned upside down again. My fiancée sat down, smiling at me, completely unaware of what had just happened. She reached for my hand across the table, her eyes shining with so much love and hope for our future. I tried to push away the feeling in my chest, the tightness that came from seeing my ex again. But deep inside, I felt a storm brewing. I could still see my ex standing near the entrance, pretending to check her phone while stealing glances at us. I knew her too well to think she'd walk away so easily. As we finished dinner, my fiancée kept talking about wedding venues and how she couldn't wait to tell her parents. But my eyes kept drifting to where my ex stood. At one point, she stepped outside and disappeared into the darkness. I told myself it was over, that she had finally accepted reality. But deep down, I knew better. When we left the restaurant, the night air felt heavy on my skin. I held my fiancée's hand as we walked to the car, forcing myself to focus on her words about color themes and guest lists. But suddenly, out of the shadows, my ex appeared again. She stood in front of us, blocking our way. My fiancée looked at her in confusion, but my ex didn't even glance at her. Her eyes were locked onto mine, wide and desperate. "Please, can I just talk to you for a minute? Alone?" she begged, her voice shaking. My fiancé looked at me, waiting for me to say something. I shook my head firmly. "There's nothing left to say," I replied, trying to move past her, but she grabbed my arm, her grip tight and trembling. "Please, just hear me out. It's important. It's about us, about something you don't know," she said, her voice rising slightly, filled with panic. My fiancé pulled my other arm gently, sensing the tension. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice small and worried. I looked between them, my chest tightening with anger and confusion. "Let go," I said to my ex, but she just tightened her grip. "You need to know the truth before you marry her," she whispered harshly, her eyes darting to my fiancé and back to me. My heart was pounding so hard I felt dizzy. "What truth?" I snapped, unable to keep my voice down. She took a shaky breath, tears streaming down her face now. "Please, just talk to me alone. If you don't, you'll regret it forever." My fiancé was staring at us both now, completely confused and hurt. The night around us felt silent despite the traffic passing by, as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for what would happen next. I could see it in my ex's eyes. Whatever she was about to say would change everything. And in that moment, I felt the ground beneath me shift, knowing life was about to explode in ways I never imagined. I stood there frozen, feeling my fiancée's grip tighten around my arm. Her eyes were wide with worry, darting between me and my ex, who was now sobbing quietly. People walking past slowed down, sensing the tension hanging thick in the night air. My ex wiped her tears roughly and looked straight into my eyes with desperation. "Please, it's about your family, your father, just give me 5 minutes," she whispered, her voice breaking as she spoke. My chest tightened painfully. What did my father have to do with her? My fiancée shook her head firmly. "Babe, let's go. She's just trying to ruin this moment for us," she said, pulling me away. But my ex grabbed my other arm with a force that shocked me. "No, listen to me. You don't know what he did, what we did," she said, her voice cracking on the last words. My stomach dropped. The world felt like it blurred around me. I turned to face her fully, my heart pounding so loud it hurt my ears. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger and fear. She swallowed hard, looking down at her trembling hands. "I can't say it here. Please, just 5 minutes alone. Then I'll leave your life forever," she whispered. My fiancée stepped forward, her eyes filled with fury now. "No. You're not going anywhere with him. Stop trying to manipulate him. He doesn't love you anymore. Get out of here before I call security," she said harshly, her voice cold and steady. My ex looked at her, then back at me, tears streaming down her face. "You need to know the truth before you marry her. Your father, he paid me," She finally blurted out, her voice shaking so hard she could barely finish her sentence. My breath caught in my throat. Paid you? Paid you for what? I asked, my voice almost a whisper now. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with guilt and pain. He paid me to leave you. To humiliate you that day. He said you needed to focus on your career, not on someone like me. He threatened my family's business if I didn't do what he said. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything except the ringing in my ears. My fiancé's grip loosened. My knees felt weak, and I grabbed onto the car door to steady myself. My father, the person I had always tried to impress, always tried to make proud, had destroyed me from behind my back. But before I could process anything further, my ex dropped another bomb. And that's not all. She whispered, her voice trembling. I'm pregnant. And it's yours. The world seemed to tilt sideways as everything around me blurred into darkness. My whole body felt numb as her words echoed in my head. Pregnant. Mine. I stared at her, my chest tightening so badly I thought I might collapse. My fiancée was frozen beside me, her mouth slightly open, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. The silence between us felt deafening. Finally, I found my voice. What do you mean it's mine? We broke up a year ago, I said, my voice trembling with confusion and anger. She wiped her tears and shook her head. We had met again, remember? That night you called me to return your books and we ended up, you know. My stomach churned as the memory flooded back. It was after her birthday. She had called me, crying about how her friends didn't come to her dinner. I had felt sorry for her, driven over to drop off her books and ended up staying for coffee. That night, we had made a mistake. I never told anyone about it because I thought it meant nothing. Just a broken goodbye. I looked at her now, shaking my head in disbelief. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She sniffled, looking desperate. Because I can't do this alone. I didn't tell you because I thought you wouldn't care. But when I saw you proposing today, I just couldn't keep it hidden anymore. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. My fiancée stepped back, tears welling up in her eyes. Is this true? She asked me, her voice trembling with hurt. I didn't know what to say. I was drowning in my own shock and guilt. My ex grabbed my hand, crying harder now. Please. I don't want money or anything. I just want you to know. I'm due in 2 months, she said, placing my hand gently on her small rounded belly. I hadn't even noticed the bump under her loose coat. Everything around me blurred as I tried to breathe. My fiancée turned away, wiping her tears, her shoulders shaking. I reached for her but she pulled away from me, sobbing. Just then, my phone rang loudly, vibrating in my pocket like an alarm. I pulled it out with trembling hands. It was my father. I answered in a daze. His voice was cold and sharp. I told you to stay focused. Now look at this mess. Break off that engagement and come home. We need to fix this before the media finds out. My heart stopped as I realized he already knew. He had planned everything. And in that moment, I understood the final truth. My life had never been mine to live. It had always been his game to play. I stood there, staring at my phone, listening to my father's cold voice as my entire world collapsed around me. My fiancée was crying quietly, wiping her tears with shaking hands, and my ex stood silently, tears streaming down her face, her arms protectively wrapped around her small baby bump. I felt anger boiling inside me, anger at my father for controlling my life, anger at myself for letting him, and anger at how everything turned out tonight. I took a deep breath and finally spoke, my voice calm but firm. No, Dad. I'm not coming home. You've controlled my life enough. You destroyed my relationship back then and tried to destroy it now. But I'm done. He went silent on the other end, probably shocked that I spoke back for the first time. I hung up without listening to his reply. I turned to my ex, who was sobbing quietly. I'll support the baby, I said softly. But I can't be with you. You hurt me deeply, and I can't go back there. She nodded, crying harder, but there was relief in her eyes that I wouldn't abandon my child. Then I turned to my fiancée, my heart breaking at the pain in her eyes. I don't expect you to forgive me, I whispered, my voice shaking. I made mistakes. I should have told you everything about my past. But please know, I love you more than anything. She wiped her tears and looked at me for a long moment, her eyes filled with so much sadness and love at the same time. I just need time, she said quietly. This is too much for me right now. I nodded slowly, understanding completely. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. I'll always wait, I said softly. We stood there for a while in silence, the cool night breeze brushing against us. Finally, she hugged me tightly, and for a moment, I felt her warmth calming the storm inside me. Then she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with tears in my eyes. I watched her go, my heart aching but also feeling lighter because for the first time, I stood up for myself. As I drove home that night, I thought about everything that happened. Life doesn't always go the way we dream it will. People we love will hurt us, and people we trust will betray us. But in the end, all we can do is stay true to ourselves and make sure that no matter what, we don't lose who we really are. And that night, for the first time, I felt free.